This week in Internet land, a friend of mine, Glenn Scrivener, he's an evangelist in the Anglican Church in the UK. He and we got to know each other a variety of my trips to England. He's actually an Australian, really sharp guy. He had a conversation with Alex O'Connor, cosmic skeptic, young man who sort of made a name for himself back during the whole atheist debate days. Alex went on to get degrees in both religion and philosophy from Oxford. Both very sharp young men. Justin Brierley, who ran a radio podcast for a long time of atheist Christian debates, decided to host a conversation between these two about the Tom Holland thesis. And if you wonder about the Tom Holland thesis, you'll see the book Tom Holland wrote called Dominion. And Tom Holland's thesis was that, I've told a little bit of Tom Holland's story before too. Tom Holland just grew up in England. England, fairly secular country. Church participation rates low. When Tom was a little boy, his parents sent him to church, and he went to Sunday school and he heard about Adam and Eve, but he was a smart little kid and thought, I don't believe any of that Adam and Eve stuff. I studied dinosaurs. And because there weren't any dinosaurs in the Adam and Eve story, he asked the Sunday school teacher some questions about the dinosaurs, and the Sunday school teacher didn't know anything about dinosaurs. And so Tom Holland decided, these people at church don't know anything. So, he lived his life and got an English degree. First started out breaking into the literary world writing vampire stories. Those didn't go anywhere. That's back when vampires was exciting. And then he always loved the Roman Empire, and he loved classical history and the stories of the Greeks and the stories of the Romans. And, he always thought that the Romans and the Greeks, they were the good guys. They were the heroes. They had these amazing gods and these amazing tales of heroes and all of that. And Tom thought these were the best stories. And so Tom's breakout book was actually Rubicon, where he wrote about Julius Caesar and the transformation of the Roman Republic into the Roman Empire. And then Tom continued to study the ancient world and continued to write popular history about it. And then he noticed with that same sort of critical spirit, there were gaps in the Muslim story. So he decided, I want to find out, there's sort of this popularized traditional tale about how Islam arose. And he thought, I want to study this as a historian. So then he studied it, and he dared to write a book that said, a lot of the sort of traditional elements of the Islamic story are not really true. And most historians don't touch it because some of the Muslims get a little touchy about it. And while Christians might not like you poking around at their story, Christians might yell at you and say nasty things about you, but that's as far as it's going to go. And when the Muslims, they saw what happened to Salman Rushdie and all of that stuff, well, Tom got in a lot of hot water for the book he wrote about the origins of Islam. And at one event when he was talking about the book, there was a woman who said, I don't like what you've done to my religion. He says, well, I'm sorry, I'm just studying. He says, why don't you pick on your own faith? He thought, well, I don't have a faith. But then he thought, well, what if I did this to the Christian story? So he started studying, and it's out of that study that his book Dominion came out of. And he basically looked at the ancient world, and what was dawning on him was all of his heroes from the ancient world, well, they were brutal. You can read Julius Caesar's account of his conquest of Gaul, which was basically a piece of political propaganda. And Julius Caesar brags in the book how he killed 1 million people in Gaul. Gaul's like Germany and France and the Netherlands. He killed 1 million and enslaved another 1 million. Because whenever the Roman armies would conquer, they'd kill the men. You take the women and children and you transport them down and you sell them in the slave markets. That was normal. And so when he did a triumph through Rome, he had all of the booty and all of the wealth, and then he had just lines of people that would be sold in the slave markets. In the American story, when we think about slaves, we think about people who were captured from Africa and brought to America. Well, in Europe, who do you think, what color hair do you think those slaves had? They were French and English and Dutch, and they were all the slaves. Slavery's happened all over the world. And so Tom Holland, the more he actually studied the ancient world, the world of Rome, Alexander the Great, amazing guy, young man, conquered the world. When you conquer a city, what do? You kill the men and you enslave the rest of the population. That's just how the world worked. And the more Tom saw that, he said, this ancient world that I loved was a brutal world. And slavery was just a part of it. And then he studied Jesus and said, why does our world feel what it feels about all of these issues? And the answer he came to was, Jesus changed the world. Now, each of these three men, Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Jesus Christ, all claim to be a son of God. Now, for Caesar and Alexander, their gods were Zeus or on Olympus or Jupiter. You have the Roman names, you have the Greek names. And they were given divine rights. Divine Julius Caesar, son of God, or the gods. Alexander, son of God, or the gods. How did you know? And then Jesus comes along, son of God. What does divinity look like in Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and Jesus? Now, we've been going through the book of signs, and John's highlights 7 signs. Now, why 7? Because, of course, it's 7. It's the Jewish perfect number. But there are many signs that he didn't highlight, but he highlighted 7. The water to wine, healing the official son, healing the lame man. Those 3 we covered. We didn't talk about feeding the 5,000 or walking on water. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about healing the man born blind and raising Lazarus. But all along in the book of signs, Jesus says again and again, like he said to his mother, my hour has not yet come. My hour has not yet come. The book of signs in the Gospel of John is done. The hour is coming. Well, what do you mean the hour? Remember D-Day? D-Day was the day of the Normandy invasion. D-Day had, guess what? H-hour. D-Day, H-hour. That's how they organize things. For Jesus, the hour doesn't mean 60 minutes. The hour means the time has come. But the time has come for what? So I thought, well, if there were 7 signs in the Gospel of John, what might be 7 signs of the divinity of Julius Caesar? So we have all this AI now. So, hey, whip up 7 signs of Julius Caesar. And they're really very good. There was a comment that happened during his funeral, and everybody said, oh, the gods are speaking. There was the lineage. Caesar says, I'm actually descended from Venus, the goddess of love. And that's common in the ancient world. If you have a great person, they construct a genealogy. And you might say, well, there are genealogies in Matthew and Luke. Yeah, there are. Why would that be? Julius Caesar had the pontificate. Now, when I say that, you all think, how was Julius Caesar Pope? Before the Bishop of Rome became the Pope or the Pontifex Maximus, that was Julius Caesar. That was the Roman Empire. You say, well, why would they use that word? Pontus in Latin means bridge. Julius Caesar was the bridge to divinity. He was the mediator between Rome and the gods. Clementia, mercy. Now, Julius Caesar, it was the sign of a great man to extend mercy. Now, it didn't Mercy didn't extend to the 1,000,000 Gauls he killed and the other 1,000,000 he sold into slavery, but it can be a very big thing to stand up on stage and someone deserves death and I pardon you. And everyone's like, oh, look at the mercy. Well, there you have it. Not so much for the 2,000,000, but the fact that he always won battles, or at least mostly, or at least enough. The cultic honors and then the retribution. If you crossed Julius Caesar, well, he knew how to get you back. What about Alexander? Well, there was an oracle. His invincibility, a young man just won battle after battle after battle. He cut the Gordian knot. He smelled good. You might say, well, what is that? Well, it's a classical trope that the bodies of gods and heroes lacked mortal corruption. So he claims that his skin and his breath smelled naturally sweet like incense. And then there's the proskinesis. That's a Greek word, but it basically means to bow down on the ground, demanding the ritual of people bowing down. When I walk in a room, I expect everybody to be on the floor. It's just normal. The formal requirement of divine honor is usually reserved for the gods. And he too claimed lineage of the gods. Alexander and Caesar achieved divinity by wielding death. Last week we saw Jesus, happy he was not present, knowing he would get back after Lazarus was dead, because Jesus wasn't wielding death. Jesus beat death. Now, there were some Greeks along with those who went up to worship at the festival. Now, when the Gospel of John says this, it doesn't mean these were Greeks from Greece. What this means that these were Jews who had relocated into Greece, and they spoke Greece, but they had come down for the festival. And we're going to meet more people like that in the book of Acts. Paul, who's from Tarsus in Asia Minor, spoke Greek, but would go to Jerusalem for the festivals because the Jews were all throughout the Eastern Roman Empire, but those who had enough means and opportunity would go down for the festival. So these Greeks had heard about Jesus, and they probably hadn't seen him, and so it was sort of like, we want to meet the really famous guy. So they go to Philip. Now, why Philip? Anybody know the name of Alexander's father? Little history quiz. Somebody here, one person must know. Philip of Macedonia. So a disciple named Philip probably has had some influence in their family with the Greeks. So they would go to a disciple named Philip because you always sort of go to someone close to you linguistically and culturally. You go to another country if you don't know the language. You find someone who speaks the language. So they go to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee, with a request. Sir, they said, we would like to see Jesus. Philip went to tell Andrew. Andrew and Philip in turn told Jesus. Now, this little pecking order here, I want us to pay attention because it's going to come at a really crucial point after. There seems to be sort of a pecking order within the disciples. Maybe Philip didn't feel close enough to Jesus to sort of make this ask, so he finds Andrew, Peter's brother, and together they go to Jesus and they make the ask. You know, they're sort of in hiding. Remember that from last week after Lazarus, so they're keeping a low profile, and people are looking for Jesus because they want to meet him. And these are likely wealthy people because they've traveled in. There's some high status wealthy people that would like to meet you, Jesus, so they work their way up the chain. Jesus doesn't address it hardly at all. This is what he says. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. You can see why they're a little afraid of him, because every time they ask him something, he says something like this, and it's like, we just wanted to know if you wanted to see these Greeks. All along in the gospel, the hour is not going to come, the hour has come. for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. I kind of wonder if, well, first of all, there's this image that Jesus is basically saying, these Greeks think I'm important. I should feel good about myself because wealthy, powerful people are coming from around the world to see me. What I'm about to do is going to seed something that none of you can imagine. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servants also will be. My Father will honor anyone who serves me. Is that kind of an answer to whether or not you're going to see the Greeks? You can just imagine Philip and Andrew sort of scratching their heads. Now my soul is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No, it is for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. The crowd was there and heard it and said it had thundered. Others said an angel had spoken to him. Wow, it's a lot for a request. Jesus said, this voice was for your benefit, not mine. Now is the time for judgment on this world. Now the prince of this world will be driven out, and I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. He said this to show the kind of death he was going to die and what would happen after. The crowd spoke up. We have heard from the law that the Messiah will remain forever. So how can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? They understood what he said about his death. We thought that the Messiah would be forever here, fighting our battles, making us great. Jesus told them, you are going to have a light just a little longer. Walk while you have the light before darkness overtakes you. Whoever walks in the dark does not know where they are going. Believe in the light while you have light, so that you may become children of light. When he had finished speaking, Jesus left and hid himself from them. So he's basically saying, you want a perpetual winner that's going to live forever and always be winning? You've got the light now. Learn from me to walk this way, because in a little while, you won't have me. After this, Jesus had performed many signs in their presence. They still would not believe in him. This was to fulfill the word of Isaiah the prophet. Lord, who has believed our message? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? For this reason, they could not believe, because as Isaiah said elsewhere, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, so they can neither see with their eyes nor understand with their hearts, nor turn, and I would heal them. And again, this question is, well, what? Isn't the mission that he would come and they would all believe him? Yeah. But the hour is coming. Well, what is that hour? He's told us what it is. Isaiah said this because he saw Jesus' glory and spoke about him. Well, think about that. Isaiah, centuries before, through the temple, through the revelation, saw Jesus. Ponder that. Yet at the same time, many, even among the leaders, believed in him, but because of the Pharisees, they would not openly acknowledge their faith for fear they would be put out of the synagogue. Peer pressure, public pressure. Everybody's in a culture war. Everybody's putting pressure on everybody else. Say this right now. Do this right now. Take this side right now. So you've got people who are leaders who are believing Jesus, but they're cowards. They're afraid. Remember Nicodemus. For they loved human praise more than the praise from God. Then Jesus cried out, "Whoever believes in me does not believe in me only, but in the one who sent me. The one who looks at me is seeing the one who sent me." What Jesus is saying is, do you want to know what the Creator God of the universe looks like? Look at me. That's pretty much what Caesar or Alexander would say. Now, there's lots of gods, and the system is different, but they would say, do you want to see the power of Zeus? Do you want to see the power of Achilles? Look at me. I'll show you power. Watch me crush Gaul. Watch me crush the world. That's the power of the gods. Jesus says, do you want to see the heart of the Creator God? Watch me. If anyone hears my words but does not keep them, I do not judge that person. For I did not judge the world. I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. There is a judge for the one who rejects me and does not accept my words. The very words I have spoken will condemn them on the last day. For I did not speak on my own, but the Father who sent me commanded me to say all that I have spoken. I know that his command leads to eternal life. Whatever I say is just what the Father has told me to say. It was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave the world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. What would Jesus' love for his own look like as opposed to Caesar and Alexander? Now, James and John's mother came to Jesus and said, "Make my sons your lieutenants at your right and left hand." And you got to know she was thinking like Julius Caesar and Alexander. Jesus, when you conquer, I want my sons to be the lieutenants. I want my sons. What happens when you get to the top of that hierarchy? You get the bribes, you get the kickbacks, you get the riches, you get the access, you get all of the good things that wealth and power and fame give you in this world. What is Jesus going to give his disciples? The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Judas, Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power. That's what Julius Caesar says. I've conquered the world. That's what Alexander said. I've conquered the world. Jesus knows that everything is under his power. And it's like, but why are you in this little upper room in Jerusalem? You should be in Rome. Had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up and made a great speech. Well, he's going to talk. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Now, Simon Peter understands completely. All along, Jesus, we've been going along because the signs have been really clear and the power, and it's gone on really good. But all along, they've sort of thought Jesus doesn't quite know how to do this Messiah gig. Because if Jesus was going to really do it right, you really got to learn from the success stories, Jesus. You really got to learn from Caesar and Alexander, sons of the gods. These guys know how to do it. So Jesus, you're young. We'll be patient with you. You just have to be a little teachable and open to correction. Did Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great ever do anything like Jesus washing his disciples' feet? Even loquacious AI says, in a word, no. Why? In the world of Alexander the Great and Caesar, divinity was defined by ascent, rising above the common man through power, conquest, and the demand for service. The idea of a divine or even a great man performing the task of a slave was not just assent. It would have been seen as a categorical failure of his dignity, which is exactly why when Jesus does this, Peter is like, we have tolerated enough from you, Jesus. You really don't know how to do this thing. Jesus replied, you do not realize what I'm doing, clearly. But later you will understand. No, said Peter, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus answered, unless I wash you, you can have no part of me. Howard Aiken worked for Bell Labs. He said, don't worry about people stealing an idea. If it's original, you'll have to ram it down their throats. That's exactly what Jesus has to do. Peter, if you don't let me wash your feet, you'll have no part of me. Now, in a minute, that's going to really become salient for us. Then, Lord, Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. Jesus answered, those who've had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, but not all of you. For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said, not everyone is clean. Now, Caesar was betrayed, and he was betrayed by Brutus. And Caesar had treated Brutus like a son. Do you think if Caesar had known, now there's stories of the prophecies of the Ides of March and all of this, do you think if Caesar had known what Brutus would have done, that Caesar would have been killed? No. Do you have any imagination what Caesar would have done to Brutus if he had learned that he was a conspirator? Now, Shakespeare, of course, says et tu, Brute, but people trying to find out exactly what Caesar said, one of the things that actually they think he might have said in Greek was to Brutus, you too, my child? Jesus knows what's coming, and he knows who's going to do it. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Yes, I am your teacher and Lord. Now that I, your teacher and Lord, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. Wait. What about that pecking order? Philip finds Andrew, talks to Jesus. You know, there's a pecking order in everything. And yes, Jesus is at the top. And Jesus says, I want you to wash each other's feet. I've set an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you would be blessed if you do them. I am referring to all of you. I'm not referring to all of you. I know those I have chosen, but this is to fulfill the passage of Scripture. He who shares my bread has turned against me. And I am telling you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am who I am. I am who I am. I am who I am. Moses at the burning bush. But if I go back to Egypt, who will I said sent me? I am who I am. Gospel of John knew exactly what he was writing. Very truly, I tell you, whoever accepts anyone I send accepts me, and whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me. So there is a chain, and it goes up to God, and Jesus says, if you want to know what the creator of the world looks like, doesn't look like Caesar's God, doesn't look like Alexander's gods, it looks like my Father. After he said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified, very truly I tell you, one of you is going to betray me. And that troubled in spirit is exactly the phrase used when he was facing off at Lazarus' tomb. In other words, how does he feel about what Judas is going to do? He's heartbroken because Judas is his friend. And you got to know, Jesus at that moment could have said, you know what? Judas is going to betray me. Grab him. Let's take him out of town. Let's stone him. Let's get rid of him and keep the revolution going. Does Jesus do that? Caesar would have done that. Alexander would have done that. Probably any of us would have done that. His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which one he meant. One of them, the disciples whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon mentioned to his disciples and said, ask which one he means. Now, this moment is so fascinating because all along in the Gospels, we see the disciples not knowing what to do. And then because Peter's the oldest and sort of the head, okay, Peter, you speak for us. Why in this moment, did anybody order any Uber Eats? This poor guy's looking for something. All right, just making sure. He's been out there for about 10 minutes, like confused. What do I do with this? I know it's got a little long today. You're a little hungry, but we're going to eat. This moment is so amazing because Peter always speaks for them. And it would be absolutely appropriate for Peter to say, Jesus, be clear. Who are you talking about? But Peter doesn't. Why doesn't he? Does Peter feel something in his heart? Does Peter know something about himself? We're going to come to that in a little bit. So John, who's leaning against, likely the youngest disciple, because the youngest can often get away with things. Paul was at my house last night, met my son Ben, and I'm always amazed. Jared will testify to this. Benny, the youngest, can sometimes say things in the house no one else can say because he's the baby. Leaning against Jesus, he asked him, Lord, who is it? Jesus answered, it is the one to whom I give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish. Then dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. So Jesus told him, what you're about to do, do quickly. Could you imagine Julius Caesar saying that to Brutus? No one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. Since Judas was in charge of the money, some thought Jesus was telling him to buy what he needed for the festival or to give something to the poor. As soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out. And it was night. Remember when Nicodemus comes. Remember all the sayings Jesus talks about light and darkness. When he was gone, Jesus said, now the Son of Man is glorified and God is glorified in him. In this moment, Caesar gets glory when he runs slaves through the forum. Alexander gets glory when he kills a city. Jesus has just let his traitor go with a piece of bread, and Jesus declares, now the glory is here. And I'm sure the disciples are thinking, what glory? If God is glorified in him, God will glorify the Son in himself and will glorify him at once. My children, I will be with you only a little longer, and you will look for me, just as I told the Jews. So I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Just count how many times he repeats that. Now you know you're a disciple of Julius Caesar if you conquer like Julius. And you know you're a disciple of Alexander if you conquer like Alexander. And Jesus says, people will know that you're my disciple if you love one another. This is no one in the world. How does this make sense? Well, we all hear it today and say, yeah. Who changed history? Simon Peter asked him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus replied, where I am going, you cannot follow now, but you will follow later. Peter said, Lord, why can't I follow now? I will lay down my life for you. Peter, is that why you didn't dare say that to Jesus? And Jesus answered, will you really lay down your life for me? Very truly, I tell you, before the rooster crows, you will disown me, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Peter, let's not be full of ourselves here. You will follow, but later. And right away, we see Peter and Judas. And we wonder, both will betray him. Only one will be restored. What does divinity look like in Julius Caesar? It's easy to answer. What does divinity look like in Alexander the Great? That's easy to answer. But divinity in Jesus? Many died to make Julius and Alexander gods, for them and from them. The Son of Man dies so that we might be like him. Someone might say, wouldn't Tom Holland first thought, I'd rather be like Julius. I'd rather be like Alexander. And now Tom in his 50s is beginning to think, I think I'd rather be like Jesus. The Son of Man dies so that we might be like him. He becomes our servant, and he dies like a slave. He merely wishes to wash us, and that we would do so for each other. That's what he asks. I don't think the debate is close. My friend Glenn, he wrote a book, The Air We Breathe. It's a wonderful book. Basically says, it's Tom Holland for dummies, but I don't think Alex brought the argument he needed. I think, here's the argument. Look at Julius, look at Alexander, and then look at Jesus and ask why when Jesus says that you love one another, we all say, yeah. I don't think they would have said that in Rome or in Macedonia. But we say it now, even if we can't live it, like Peter. A new commandment I give you. Just count them. Love one another. 1. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. 2. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciple. Did you get the message the first time? If you love one another. 3 times in those 2 little verses. Can he make it any clearer? This is how disciples of Jesus will be recognized. Disciples of Julius, there's a line a mile long for people who want to inherit the riches and power of this world at the expense of their enemies. People wondered at what had happened. Alexander, tutored by Aristotle, all of that winning. Jesus, at the age of 33, spread on a cross by his enemies. And we think, I don't know a lot about Julius or Alexander, but Jesus was a good guy. Oh, I think Jesus is winning, but it's a whole different kind of winning. Jesus gave Judas bread. He broke it and said, this is my body broken for you. So that doesn't look like winning. Julius and Alexander break bodies, other people's bodies, so that they can win. Jesus, who could still a storm, who could raise the dead, who could feed 5,000, who could multiply, turn water into wine, said, I'm going to let the armies of Julius break my body. And this is how I win. And if you want to receive my winnings, and if you want to be a winner like me, then this meal is for you.